ticket on Broadway right now is a hip-hop musical about the life of Alexander Hamilton. You got a ticket? You're very fortunate. It tells the remarkable story of his life, rising from immigrant, impoverished orphan to Revolutionary War hero to death in a duel with Aaron Burr. But I'm here to talk today, briefly, about something that he did that was very important that rose out of a less dramatic moment in his life, a quiet picnic with General George Washington next to a waterfall in New Jersey during the Revolutionary War, right after the Battle of Monmouth. These two men would go on to lead a ragtag, ill-equipped, volunteer army to defeat the most powerful country in the world. And President George Washington, a decade later, would appoint Alexander Hamilton our first Secretary of the Treasury. And Hamilton went to work creating a new financial system. He saw a big problem. Here it was 15 years after the Declaration of Independence, and we're still importing all manufactured goods from England, even military supplies. And he decided that was really something that would forever put America at the mercy of foreign powers. He decided it was necessary to begin manufacturing here in our new nation everything that America needed. And he decided to jumpstart his plan, he would found a new city, create a new city from whole cloth that would begin making things in America. But where? He thought back to that waterfall. The Great Falls of the Passaic River stretches 300 feet wide, towers almost 80 feet high, pours roughly 2 billion gallons a day into a deep chasm. He knew that there was a way to translate the awesome force of the waterfall into industrial power. And he decided and announced to America and the world that he would found the new city of Paterson, New Jersey, on the banks of the Great Falls of the Passaic River, the world's first planned city of makers. For 150 years, Patterson would fulfill and indeed surpass Hamilton's wildest dreams. Patterson would make the first hydropower system, the first sailcloth for every ship in the American Navy, the first Colt revolvers, the first submarines, the first aircraft engine to fly a man across the Atlantic. Patterson would make more locomotives than any city in the United States and more silk goods than any city in the world. Not a bad outcome from a picnic lunch in Jersey. Patterson was highly successful for over a century and a half, fulfilling Hamilton's vision. But with the widespread decline in manufacturing that began after World War II, Patterson's economy would decline. I had a front row seat for that decline. I grew up in Paterson. I went to Eastside High School. The school portrayed in the movie Lean on Me, starring Morgan Freeman as the high school principal who imposed discipline with a baseball bat. The summer after my freshman year at Eastside, race riots broke out in the city, in the blocks immediately surrounding the high school. Houses burned, stores burned. And Patterson began to spiral further down. I would go off to college and graduate school and eventually become a partner in one of the largest law firms in the country in Washington, D.C. But I would frequently visit my parents in Patterson in the house near 10th Avenue where I grew up. And I watched sadly as the city continued its downward spiral. One federal agency would call Patterson the most economically distressed city in America. And about 10 years ago, a United States senator and a congressman from Patterson, both of whom grew up in Patterson, in the neighborhood, in fact, where I had grown up, approached me with an idea. Let's create a national park in Patterson. I talked to some of my colleagues in law practice, and they thought, they're crazy. This is absurd. Well, one of my partners, Bruce Babbitt, who had been the Secretary of the Interior, overseeing all of the national parks, actually thought it was a good idea. And he gave me some very valuable advice. He said, you got to find someone to lead this effort. You got to look for someone who's reasonably intelligent, basically hardworking, and an unrelenting pain in the ass. My wife said I was exceptionally well qualified. And I was all in. I wrote legislation. I organized national organizations, scholars. Ron Chernow, who wrote the Hamilton biography, that inspired the musical, was one person who testified, and he actually called Patterson the city of the future, because that was really Hamilton's vision for it. And after some years of work in this little tiny pro bono cause off on the side of my big law practice, I got to go to the White House to see President Obama sign our legislation creating the national park. And now, my office wall displays posters from Yosemite and Yellowstone and the Patterson Great Falls National Park. We opened the first phase of the national park the end of last summer. It's actually on the acres of land right where Hamilton and Washington had their picnic lunch of tasty biscuits, that Colonel wrote down, ham and grog. We saw last year 200,000 visitors come to our national park. And when we complete the build out of the 55 acres of waterfront property in Patterson, and we complete our Alexander Hamilton Visitor Center directly opposite the falls, we'll have well over 1 million visitors a year. We are beginning to see very, very slowly that the national park is starting to transform the horribly tainted image of the city as a place to visit, to work, to live, and to invest. We have begun to turn the corner from the downward spiral to a trajectory of hope. Cities around the world that used to make things are approaching the same kind of problem in different ways. In Beijing, it's the 798 art zone. In Hamburg, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In Łódź, Poland, where my grandparents had come from, it's the manufacturer restored factory complex. And closer to home, you all know the High Line on the west side of Manhattan, which has stimulated billions of dollars of economic development since opening several years ago. We find now that you actually don't need to have a national park to begin to transform a place that used to make things from a place that people want to flee into a place that people want to be. In Patterson, we have a national park, and it's wonderful this year because the National Park Service is celebrating its centennial. For 100 years, park rangers have worked to bring people to the great wilderness parks of the West. And what we have done in Patterson is to bring a park to the people. In Patterson, we celebrate the past by looking to the future. And as Alexander Hamilton taught us, the future is what we make it. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.